Hey everybody, welcome to another video, and in this video I'm going to be showing you a very simple basic drill. It's going to be a practice of the vision. And what I mean by visions, I mean not necessarily wording, but I mean your eyes, where your eyes should be looking at when you're playing the game. Now, let's roughly talk about what we want to do here, and I'll give you this exact practice. Okay, this is a physical practice that you have to do. We're going to do a little bit of it right now, and all you need is a replay of a POV replay of any competent player playing the game. Okay, and this will 100% drastically improve your gameplay. I'm not going to teach you something. I'm not going to tell you something until I've myself done it. I must improve at it before I start teaching it, because I do experiment with certain things. And this is a drill. This is a concept and idea that I'm going to be teaching you. And if you do this, you will find dramatic differences in your skill in the game. Okay, because you're going to be essentially having a reference, and that reference is going to be some of the most optimal plays. So I would highly recommend you start getting some of your best or your favorite professional players, their POVs together. They have to be pretty good. Like, they have to be relatively competent players. Of course, I'm using one of the best players that League has to offer, Faker, in this example. And let's get into it. So to start off, let's talk about the drill. The drill is the drill of the eyes. Okay, it's vision, and I don't mean words. Okay, because words, that's a different type of vision. What I'm talking about is how your eyes are perceiving the game. So there's two factors to be understood here. There are first thoughts. Okay, so you have your thoughts. These are whatever information or ideas that you have while you're playing the game. And and higher level players, you'll know that this is a repetitive pattern once you're actually playing the game, because the game is, although very dynamic in the sense where different champions and different maneuvers and different positions, all this stuff exists, there is a very consistent pattern, and only higher elo players will actually understand what I'm talking about here. Lower elo players don't understand that yet. That's okay. You need to develop yourself more. So thoughts is very important. Thoughts are dictated by what your eyes are looking at. Now, this isn't completely verbatim, okay, because you can close your eyes and still have thoughts. But when it comes to League of Legends, whatever you're looking at is usually what you're thinking about, or usually what your some of your thoughts are revolving around, right? Whether you look at top lane, you're going to have thoughts about top lane. You're going to be looking at the wave. You're going to be looking at the champion. You're going to have some form of an idea, and that's because your eyes are looking at that location of the game, of the screen. Okay, so what we're going to be looking at here is we're going to be essentially training our eyes to look at the most important things of League of Legends on the screen, and with that, our thoughts will automatically be aligned to what we should be doing. And you're going to notice this is going to drastically change the way you play the game for the better. Okay, so I'm going to give you a quick example here. Right now, in League of Legends, there's only 3 things you have to be looking at. Now, this is very crucial that you understand this, because these are the things that you must look at. 3 things, that's all. So the first thing is, and let's go ahead and fast forward the video here, just a little bit, so we actually see these 3 things in action. Now, 3 things, please write this down, be aware of these. These are the only 3 things you need to know. League of Legends is not a difficult game. This game is not complicated. This game is very simple, and you're going to understand the simplicity in it after you've kind of understood what needs to, once you know how to play the game. It's very simple, very easy rules. It's not complicated, despite the variety of items and champions and abilities. Although yes, there is a knowledge curve for a lot of newer players, the game in itself is very simple. Now, the first thing you're going to be looking at, and this is quite important, is you're going to be looking at the transaction between the 2 minion waves. Okay, you're going to be looking at the minion waves. And what I mean specifically is you're going to be looking at these small little, attacks. Okay, because these will time when you're going to go in for the last hits. You don't have to necessarily focus so much on last hitting when you can just mentally time the pacing of the auto attacks. And we'll talk more about this later. So regardless, anyways, what you want to be thinking about, first and foremost, very crucial, is you must look at the transaction between the waves, between the 2 minion waves, okay? Because these will dictate whether someone goes in for a CS or whether they back off, etc. Okay, the Second thing that you want to be looking at is you want to be looking at the opposing champion. This is to look at their animations. You want to be paying attention to how they're moving. This is very crucial. This is, I mean, any example. For example, in a fight, you don't want to be looking at the guy's legs. You want to be looking at certain body parts, and as they move, like, they're gonna hit you. I guess this is a little harder, more ambiguous of an example with people who may not have experience with like martial arts or any form of combat fighting. But Street Fighter is a very good fighting games is a pretty good example, right? You play any fighting games like Brawlhalla, you play any fighting games like Street Fighter, and it's very important that you start looking at your opponent very directly so you know exactly what they're trying to do. This is the second most crucial thing you have to look at. Again, the first thing being the transaction between the waves, the second thing being the enemy champion, and then lastly, the minimap. Very simple. Transaction between the minion waves, lane opponent, minimap. That's it. If you're playing bot lane, then it's a little bit trickier because there's two players, but the rule still applies. You're still looking at whoever's relevant. Okay? And relevancy requires knowing who's relevant to look at specifically requires knowledge. And if you lack knowledge, then coaching is what you want to try to get in that case. But I'm not going to talk too much about that in detail. Again, we're just talking about very simple, basic mid lane example here. And again, even as an ADC, you can do this. As a top laner, you can do this. And make sure you're actually watching some of the best players, because if you're watching if you're watching bad players, or if you're watching, like, for example, even yourself play, then it's not going to be effective, because you want to just look at the best of the best, because you want to have that framework, that reference to go on. Okay, that's very important that you have that reference to go on for when you're actually in your own live games. So here, I'm not even going to really analyze or break down the video too much, but I'm just going to be talking about specifically what you want to be paying attention to. So bone plating breaks out, right? This is fine. Auto comes off. Faker loses the trade because he's trading into level 1 Victor, which is, I don't know, whatever. Pulls the first minion in, and again, looking at the transaction of the wave. Okay, we're just looking at the last hit. So let's wait for a moment at which Faker is trying to go for a last hit. Okay, so he goes for the last hit. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to look at the minion that you need to last hit, and then start timing when this auto will allow you to do that. So right now, this minion here is going to require 1 melee plus 1 caster auto to last hit. Okay? We know this because we're paying attention to it. Our eyes are directed towards this specific moment. Now, the second thing we're noticing is Victor's positioning. We know that Victor used an ability. He already used his E, which means that now he's probably still on cooldown and he is backing off, which means that now we can play up over here, and we'll be pretty safe, okay? And then the last thing, again, is you can look at the minimap. We can see that Lee Sin is starting his blue buff. We don't actually know where enemy jungle is yet, and we're probably not going to know. One, I don't know who the enemy jungler is, and two, both side laners came at the same time. Doesn't matter. The information doesn't matter as long as you're actually looking, because the more you start practicing consciously looking at the 3 variables we talked about, again, the transaction between the minion waves, the lane opponent, and the minimap, you'll eventually have the information, okay? Here, I actually don't know who came first, and honestly, I don't really care. It's nothing to do with the point I'm trying to drive home here. Okay, so now okay, so this is just a really he's just hard trading, and because he's hard trading, his enemy minions are not dying because his minions are hitting Victor. So yeah, that's why he's able to get away with not losing this last hit, because the blue casters are going to hit Victor because Victor is trading next to Vix, right? Now, again, same thing. Okay, we know that in about one auto, in one auto, this next minion is last hittable. we know that in one more auto, this minion is last hittable. Okay? If you have Doran's Ring, I think you can last hit it now. Faker is running Corruption, so it's a little less damage. But in this frame, we know that this minion is last hittable after one more auto. So you're really just timing it. Okay, one auto goes off, all right, I'm going to hit it. And then again, obviously, we're looking at Victor, and we're again looking at the minimap. You don't have to look at the minimap like over and over again. Like you generally have to look at it after every last hit, or after every last two like minions you take. That's fine. Yeah, don't stress yourself too much with that. Just make sure you're looking at the minimap enough, and try to just look at it like every few seconds. Honestly, if you're a beginner player, it's very important to just make sure your eyes are trained to look at it. Eventually, you don't have to think about it. You know, you don't have to make a conscious effort to do that because your body remembers the constant actions that you perform day to day, to the point where they become quite automotive. Of course, you have to have awareness while doing so, and that's how you refine on those actions. However, you have to understand that you don't have to pay so much mental, physical energy to be able to do these things, because the more you practice it, the more natural it will become. And then, you know, you'll be able to do more and more things. You'll be able to pace the game in your head mentally a lot easier. And we'll talk about that. I mean, I've spoken about that in my previous videos and stuff. I'm not gonna talk about that here because this is more geared towards, I guess, low elo players. But yeah, once you're able to do this, you'll be able to pace the game in your head a lot easier. And when I say pace the game in your head, I mean with respects to like, okay, well, jungle starts here. Maybe he does this. You know, this wave is pushing out. Maybe it's a gank. Okay, he invades. My jungle goes like this. You know, whatever. You know what's there's like a conversation. There's a transaction between the two junglers. There's a transaction between the laners on the sides happening. And you can pace these things, but you have to become natural with your own game first, your own ability to play the game. Once your own game, once your own competency is more refined and you're able to actually perform at a relatively decent level on a consistent basis, then you can start to entertain like many different things. Of course, you don't have to do this in lower elo because there's really nothing to entertain in low elo because everything around you is like RNG. Other than yourself, of course, you're the only factor. But the higher level you go, the higher elo you play at. Low elo players won't understand this. But the higher elo you play at, you'll start to see a rhythm and a pattern, and yeah. You'll see it generally after like Masters 100, 200, 300 LP. You'll see it a little bit in Diamond 1, but it's still pretty bad. But you'll see the game differs a lot in like 300, 400, 500 points. And then it stays pretty consistent. And then it's just really refined upon, really. But you may not see it entirely in like Diamond 1, Diamond 2. Diamond 2, you're not going to see it at all. It's really bad. Anything below Diamond 3, I would consider that the same as like Silver or Gold. And so, yeah, you're not going to be able to really find that kind of rhythm, that pattern, that consistency, that general awareness, that teammate union when you're playing at those lower elo ranks, okay? So anyways, going back to the video, I want you to make sure you're paying attention to the autos of these minions, and based on when these minions are going to kill the enemy last hits, you know that you should move up. Now, physically, you're obviously not doing it, but you're watching Faker do it. And so you're actually mentally playing the game. Your lane opponent here is this Victor. You're mentally playing the game. You're not physically playing it. But that's really important that you first learn how to mentally play it before you can actually physically play it. Because Faker, not only does he have to actually do all the things, look at these things, process them in his head, he actually has to physically press his keys and be able to, you know, move his mouse to the right way, and then obviously entertain issues like misclicks and stuff. And so for this is again for silver, gold. If you're like below D1, just is really important that you start doing this on a consistent basis. Okay, you're just mentally playing the game. So you are the Vex in this case. E comes off. This is pretty good because fear. Victor responds with E. Yeah, as you can see again. Right here, freeze frame quickly. Victor backs off. He already used his E. He's on cooldown. Victor's positioning up here. We're paying attention. But again, we're very closely looking at when our last hits are going to come up. So we know that this minion is going to probably hit this minion. This minion is obviously engaged with this minion. And so we know that after one more auto, the minion here, this one right over here, is going to be in last hit range. So let's see what Faker does exactly. There you go. He autos it. He times it. Okay, it's very easy when you start timing these things to make sure like you're not missing last hits. It's actually very hard to miss last hits if you're able to do this. And last hitting becomes very natural. You don't really have to think about it, and you'll be able to get like 8 to 9 to 10 CS a minute really, really easily. You don't even have to like try. Okay. Also, you have to make sure that sometimes like minions change aggro. That's honestly, there's a bit of RNG to it where like minions change aggro, and I know that some people can agree when I say that's one of the most frustrating feelings when your minion's about to like kill and you're about to go for a last hit, but like it changes aggro and then you end up hitting it too early or you end up hitting it too late or something. That's okay. That happens to everyone, honestly, whatever. Sometimes minions troll. There is an RNG factor to it. Or perhaps even that RNG factor in a way could be calculated, but I'm not entirely aware of how to do that. So yeah. Okay, let's keep watching. Again, what I want you to do is pay attention. Every last hit that Faker does, you have to kind of be like, okay, now he's going to last hit. Okay, now he's going to go for it. Okay, now he's going to go for it. While you're doing that, glance at Victor and glance at the minimap. Again, entertaining those three variables that we talked about, okay? He autos here again. Again, right here, this is going to be the next auto. Okay, and now we auto. We know that this minion here, this will take... So okay, very crucial. These three casters are hitting this minion here. Okay? So that's some time. We don't have to go for it yet. This minion here might be in last hit range. Now, let's see what Faker does. There we go. He autos it. And now he knows that, okay, watch the little like blue circles, okay? 1, 2, last hit. 1, 2. Okay, my bad. He's using Corruption Potion. So I actually forgot. So it's a little more. 1, 2. So right here, 1, 2, 3. So you see, no, not even 3. So right here, after this, you're gonna last hit. Okay. Now, if you have Doran's Ring, you could have just hit it after 3, but because you don't have Doran's Ring, Vex autos are like paper. You have to auto after this. So he does. Okay. Do you see what I'm saying here? It's really important to start understanding these things. I usually use like I use Corruption Potion too. Corruption Potion is really good. It's really important in this matchup. I'd much rather have Corruption than Doran's Ring here. But you have to understand that when you're running Corruption Potion in comparison to Doran's Ring is just gonna help you CS more. It's the same thing as like the tier passive, right? Where you're just gonna be able to CS a little bit easier. But with Corruption Potion, you're like really not hitting enough damage. You really don't have any damage to the minions. You have to be very careful when you're last hitting minions. But again, even that becomes quite natural after a while, okay? So same thing here, we auto. We know that after these 2 minions, this minion should be last hittable. Okay, and he missed it. He missed it here. So why did Faker miss it? He autos to thin it a little bit. And unfortunately, his auto attack is too far away, and the melee minion in front manages to get the last hit before Faker can. That's okay. That happens a lot of the times. It's just a small little error. That doesn't really matter. It's not really a big deal, because as long as you're looking at these things, that all that matters. Now Victor has his abilities back up. We're gonna get the hell out of here. We see Lee Sin on the wolf camp. Okay, he's gonna be pathing down. So we back off. Victor uses E. His E is baited out. Now again, here we notice that we want this minion here. Okay, we don't have any spells. Now after 1, maybe 2 more of these little auto attacks from the backline casters, we can last hit this minion. Now, what you want to do is you want to be moving up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, and getting this minion. Because the second you go in for this last hit, Victor would want to try to hit you, of course, okay? Of course, if Victor's on cooldown and you know it's safe, you don't have to worry too much. But you want to be moving up and down to try to play for that timing. Goes for the last hit. Uses the Q. And now again, right here, we know that there's going to be 1. This one's going to hit. Cannon's going to hit. 1 more caster auto, then we're going to last hit. Although we might not be able to do that because we're actually hard trading. And we're like really low. Okay, so the minions end up moving up a little bit. So it basically changes. See the cannon kind of changes aggro. So the cannon actually changes from this minion to this minion, and I think it was chasing Victor for a second there as well. Yeah, the cannon's like freaking out. I think it like, I don't know what it's doing, but that's okay. Anyways, whatever. If the cannon ends up hitting this minion, then you walk up and you last hit this minion. If the cannon starts hitting this minion, then you wait for 2 more caster autos and then you last hit this minion. Does that make sense? Your eyes are glued to the transaction between the minions. Your eyes are looking at your lane opponent, and your eyes, again, between last hits and when you don't have to like either trade or last hit a minion, you can glimpse at the minimap. These are the only 3 things you have to do. Once you're better at these things, you'll start to understand certain things happening around the minimap, and once you're playing at a higher elo, there's going to be a rhythm and a pace and a conversation happening, and then you can actually participate. But right now you're playing with, like, if you're in silver gold, if you're below like D1, you're probably playing against people and with people who are just running around the map aimlessly most of the time, and so there's less of a rhythm. But that doesn't take away from the things that you still have to do, which is focusing on, again, transaction between the minions, the lane opponent, and then lastly the minimap. These are the only things you have to do. Train your eyes to look at these things, and then when you're actually playing the game, you're playing the game at a different level. You're playing with a lot more competency. Okay, so we're paying attention again. We're paying attention to the timing at which we can last hit this. In our peripherals, now again, between paying attention, because now there's 2 things that our eyes work in. There's kind of 2 ways our eyes are separated in. We have focal, like our focus, right? And then we have our peripheral. Okay? We have our focus, and then we have our peripheries. The peripheries is anything that is outside of the focus. You can still see it, but it's a little blurry because, well, it's not in your focus. Your focus is right here, and Victor is in your peripheries. But it's very easy for me to know if in my peripheral vision Victor is running at me, and therefore my automatic reaction would be to click back, while making sure I'm timing the transaction between the minions to still get this last hit. And then, of course, you know, during the downtime, you can change your focus to the minimap for a brief second, bringing all of the entirety of the screen, so all of this would be in your peripherals, and this would be in your focus, the yellow circle. You would be looking at the minimap, everything that's outside of the minimap is in your peripherals. Then again, you divert your attention back to the transaction between the 2 minions, if you're in last hit range, keeping the opposing player in your peripherals. And I guess even in some way you can also keep your map in your peripheries, but that's a little bit harder to do. Okay, and again, practice this. Very, very simple to do. Practice this, get your body used to it, and then you're gonna find that you'll be playing League at a completely different level in comparison to everyone you're playing with and you're playing against, okay? So this is my little drill for today, and I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm not actually analyzing much of the video, mainly because my purpose was just to give you an idea of what you need to be looking at and how drastically this will change the quality of your game. You're going to eventually know, but you have to consistently practice this. This is not something that you can do in a few days and then automatically you're playing as good as Faker. No, you have to practice this on a long-term basis. Your League improvement is not an overnight thing, as you probably are already aware of. And so this requires consistency, it requires discipline, it requires time. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you guys, and I will see you guys for the next video.